Hi, and welcome to another Relief for Musicians event for the Guitar Center Music Foundation. I'm your host, Rob Shanahan, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome one of the most recorded and iconic session drummers all time. Seriously, all time. Round of applause, Russ Kunkel. Welcome, Russ. How are you?
I'm fine, Rob. Thank you so much for wanting to do this and involving me in this great cause.
Yeah, it's really a great opportunity to give back to musicians, and we're going through a lot of crap right now, so anything we can do. And I was really happy Guitar Center reached out to do these, so bringing us all together and for a great cause. What could be better, right?
It's fantastic. And for the most part, when this whole pandemic started, musicians kind of got left out of the whole thing. I think there's a misconception that all musicians are rich, and that they have instruments and they play around and they live this incredibly glamorous life. But that's not really true. Musicians are just like everybody else that has a 9-to-5 job, except we're constantly unemployed. In other words, we don't get a paycheck every week. We get a paycheck when we work. And that's, people need to be made aware of that. So,
That's good. Well, we're bringing awareness to that. We're always looking for the next gig and keeping the dream alive.
exactly.
And that's really what we're doing here. We're just keeping everything going and doing what we can. And here we are in our offices, in our home studios.
Exactly.
Recording music, we're recording video, we're doing these shows. So I think we've, in this short period of time, I'm really proud of the music industry. We found a way to keep everything going. So with that, doing these shows, I get to sit down and talk with some of my favorite musicians of all time. So let's talk about what you're doing currently, Russ Kunkel. Come on, tell me about everything that's going on right now.
Well, what's going on currently is that I'm really fortunate to be in a band with some of my best mates, Danny Korchmar, Waddy Wachtel, Lee Sklar, and Steve Postel. We're called the Immediate Family.
She's probably somebody's only light, gonna shine tonight. Yeah, she's probably somebody's baby, alright. Heard her talking with her friends when she thought no one else was around. She said she got to be somebody's baby. She must be somebody's baby. It's when the cars and the signs and the streetlights light up the town. She got to be somebody's baby.
Fortunately, as well, we had an album in the can of new material that we recorded late last year. So we were able to, get that all ready to go. We just released a single on last Friday, of a song called Cruel Twist that's getting an incredible amount of radio ad right now.
So
And there's a video that we did for it. It's on Quattro Valley Records. And, we're actually getting more stuff done now, being quarantined and being separate from each other, than we probably did when we weren't. We've done lots of videos, all separate. Everybody doing their part separately and putting them up on our socials, and so it's actually been really busy with this period of time, and very excited about the prospects of the band going forward.
that seems to be a common theme with artists, musicians, friends of mine. We've found out with all this time, we've been able to actually focus on some real projects that we've had, in the can, or things that we needed to put our attention to and really focus on. I'm the same way. I've found all this time made me really go back and go through a bunch of images that I've never had time to sit and go through before. So it's actually, there's two ways to look at it. This downtime has either been a real killer, or you've found ways to really dive in and get onto projects that needed your attention. I know when we're in the middle of our busy schedules. You know, you're always running around, flying around, working, and you don't really get time to focus on some of the things and projects that you really want to focus on. So yeah, it's good to hear that you've been doing that, and other artists as well.
You know, and there's been a real learning curve. We all had to become little, you know, videographers. You know, we had to figure out how to use the right apps on our iPhones, and you know, to actually take good video that didn't look like it was, you know, completely amateur, and then put it all together so that the sound quality was good. And you know, it's been a learning curve, but you know, everyone's you know, up to the task.
Yeah, really good. And just to give a shout out to this platform that we're on right now, 8x8.
8x8, yep.
It created this amazing video conference platform that I've been using, and it works really great. And, you know, a few hiccups getting into it, but once you figure it all out, it's really user friendly, and I'm happy to be sharing it with my music friends. So the Immediate Family, and I know this band because the record cover, or the record you talked about, I did the cover for, and I've been shooting your band photos. And let me tell you, what an all-star lineup. You guys have been the soundtrack for Southern California rock music, 70s, 80s.
Better not let him in. Little old lady got me late last night. Werewolves of London again.
So let me go back to your first arrival into Hollywood. Now, I just found out this morning, reading some other things about you. You're originally from Pittsburgh.
Correct.
Pittsburgh, and then moved to LA. You were how old? Let's get into that.
I moved out to Southern California, to Long Beach, California, when I was 9 years old. And with my mom. My father had passed away back in Pennsylvania, and we just decided to relocate out here. I had a sister who was living out here, and moved to Long Beach and went to middle school there and high school at Long Beach Poly, graduated from Long Beach Poly, and was in lots of different bands, surf bands. You know, that I graduated in '66, so you know, I was right in the hotbed of everything that was going on out here on the West Coast during that period of time. So I got to be right in the middle of all the love-ins and all the music that was happening on the Sunset Strip. And one of the bands that I was in, called Things to Come, was the house band at the Whiskey A Go-Go for 19 weeks. We opened up for Cream, Jimi Hendrix, the Hollies, the Byrds, Gene Clark, the Electric Flag, the Allman Brothers before they were the Allman Brothers, you know, Spirit, all you name it, we opened up for them, and so we're right in the middle of the whole thing, and then went on to start doing sessions, music publishing sessions. A man named Joel Sill from ABC Dunhill Music hired me to do $15 a song, you know. But doing these these publishing demos, I got to play with Joe Osborne and Larry Knechtel and great musicians of the time, you know, studio musicians, and got to meet, you know, those guys and be influenced by them, and then, you know, went on to I guess the thing that really helped my career the most was meeting Peter Asher. And I met Peter Asher. He came to a rehearsal that I was doing with a wonderful singer-songwriter named John Stewart, and listened to me play and hired me to play on the Sweet Baby James album. And then the rest is pretty much history. I started working with the artists that Peter managed and produced, and, you know, it's just in the right place at the right time. And going back to what you said about the members of the Immediate Family, Danny Kortchmar, Waddy Wachtel, Lee Sklar, we were all kind of doing similar things at the same time, but we all arrived in Southern California right at that perfect moment, and became part of the singer-songwriter explosion.
Man, that's so great. And it was like a little perfect storm. You all happen to meet in Southern California,
Yeah,
find each
exactly.
other, and start making some of the most memorable and really the soundtrack of so many of our lives. I remember growing up, you dominated the radio. I was listening to you drum on so many tracks, you know, through the 70s and through my inspirational music years. So in high school, now you played in the high school marching band, concert band, jazz band.
No, not the marching band.
None
I
of those?
think in fourth and fifth grade, I played in the orchestra. You know,
Okay.
and you can imagine at those years that really wasn't that great. So that was part of my influence. I actually got kicked out for playing the snare drum too loud, but I wear
that
that
surprises
like a badge of honor. But
That
my
surprises
brother,
me because you're known for playing right in the pocket and for the music and not known as a basher. So starting out of the gate, not really your true calling.
Seed in the dirt, my friend, if you want the thing to grow. Isn't that so? Isn't that so? Go where your heart says go. Isn't that so?
The real drumming influence for me was my older brother Gilbert. He had a band that rehearsed a lot at our house, and I got to he put me on his knee and put the sticks in my hands, and that was pretty much it. And he was a huge supporter through my whole career of what I was doing, and he passed away years ago, but he was the reason that I started playing.
Oh, good. So you're still continuing to pass it along through him. That's good.
It was basically him, Charlie Watts, and Ringo Starr, basically.
That's great. Who else do you need? I mean, that's all you need, except Hal Blaine.
Well, maybe some Elvin Jones and some Jim Keltner thrown in there.
Yeah, eventually you would go on to not only meet those guys, but they become really not only mentors, but really friends and pals of yours. Tell me about working and in the studio with all these great musicians. And through the years, I know you and Jim Keltner and the other guys have ended up passing on studio gigs to each other because you've been so busy. Is that true? Is that correct?
Well, with Jim, I don't know if we passed gigs on to each other. We were both pretty busy, through all that time. Jim played with kind of a core group of people that I didn't get to play with. Jim played a lot with John Lennon and George Harrison.
Yeah.
And we did share playing a little bit with Bob Dylan. Fortunately, I got to play on a Bob Dylan album called New Morning. And Jim has played on lots of Bob's stuff as well. But Jim and I have played on a lot of things together, which is a real special thing for me, because Keltner, Jimmy Lee, is the best drummer to play with as another drummer. And one of the songs that a lot of people don't know that we're playing together on it is James Taylor's How Sweet It Is to Be Loved by You.
Oh, really? Tell
Yeah.
me about that session.
Yeah, it was fantastic. It was Lenny Waronker and Russ Titleman, and they just wanted to have Jimmy Lee and I both play on it, So Jimmy goes, "Okay, well, man, you just play the shuffle groove, and I'll just play some stuff around it,
Wow.
And he did. He played this beautiful flam on the rim of the snare drum that sounds like hand claps, but it's actually him just playing this beautiful little flam, and he played playing little skips on the kick drum. So if you listen to it again, you'll hear that it's more than one drummer.
As soon as we're done, I'm going back to it. As long as I've known you and Jim Keltner, and it's been a long time, I did not know that. So see, that's one good thing while we're doing these shows.
You see?
All these little golden nuggets. So 1970s, tell me some of your favorite studio tracks during that period. Ones that really stick out, like when you're driving down the road and it comes on the radio, you still go, man, that's a great frickin' song. That's a great drum track. Any of those really stick out?
Well, I don't know if I ever really say to myself, that's a great drum track. If I say anything pertaining to the drums, I say, God, I'm glad I didn't get kicked off that session and it actually came out, I kind of look at it in a different way. I'm always a little bit surprised that, I've actually had the chance to do the things that I've had to do, and really humbled by it, by the opportunity that I've had to play with such great singer-songwriters. Just about anything that I recorded with James Taylor, I'm incredibly proud of. And I'd have to say the same thing with Carole King. But at the same time, I'm really proud of the stuff I've done with Dylan. I played on Joni Mitchell's Blue album. There's so many things that I'm grateful that I had an opportunity to play on that have become kind of iconic albums. And I just happened to be at the right place at the right time, and I chose the right things to play, and it all worked.
And at the time, you had no idea these songs would be iconic. No. And last as long as they did. You were hoping for a chart success number or something that would sit in the charts for weeks or maybe a month, but you had no idea.
No.
At the time, I'm guessing that these songs would be as relevant today as they were back then.
No, Rob, you're really right about having no idea. And that's a question that I get asked a lot in interviews is, did you know that, when you were, playing on the Sweet Baby James album, that it would be, such an influential record? And I have to say, no, none of us knew. And I'll give you the same answer I just gave you. I was just happy to be on the date, and I was more concerned about making sure that I got called back, as opposed to thinking, well, I just played on a hit record, there was no way of knowing that. I knew James was special, and his songs and Carol's songs were really, really unique, because they were not like anything else that was out there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's hindsight is 2020, but I had no idea at the time, but I'm sure happy that I was there.
And going in, I'm thinking, and hearing that music for the first time and thinking about a drum track to lay down, like I want to know that process. Like, would you go in and would they give you an idea of what kind of drum sound they wanted, a shuffle or a straight 2/4 groove, or was it pretty much left open to you?
It was pretty much left open to me, for the most part. I think what happens to me when I'm sitting down and I'm in a session and I'm about to make the first sound that I'm going to make pertaining to this particular song, I just kind of rely on my muse. I really don't try to overthink it. I really just kind of let the music be, kind of be part of my body, and let my body do what it wants to do, and kind of rely on my internal clock and, my internal instincts of what to play. But if I do have a conscious thought before I start making any noise at all, it's that I want to try to play something I've never played before.
Oh, that's good.
I don't want to rely on the same old stuff, the same old things. I want to try to think of a different way to play it. And the best example I can give is if you listen to Manu Katché and you listen to the way that he interprets some songs, listen to him when he plays with Sting, or when what he played on Robbie Robertson's album, Robbie Robertson's first solo album.
Yeah.
He plays he plays the negative of the positive. If you take a black and white, you'll understand this. If you take a black and white photograph and then right next to it, you show the negative of that photograph, how the contrast is, what was white is black, what was black is white. Manu does that.
Yeah, that's good.
He'll create a groove by playing all the in-between notes. He won't play the one and the 2 and the 4 won't be the accent notes. There'll be some other part of it. But he'll make a groove out of that negative. And I try to think that way. I try to think of a different way to play. But, if it's a straight 2 and 4 groove, I'll try to think of how can I create momentum and have this be a constant, but without playing those notes in the way that they're always played.
Constantly finding a new voice, pushing the boundaries, extending your palette of color as an artist. I guess that's how we would describe that.
I try to, but then it probably all ends up just sounding like the same old shit.
Well, you know what didn't sound like the same old shit is Fire and Rain by James Taylor. You came out with those brushes on those massive tom fills. That was pretty cool, man. That was, I got to say, that was a pretty cool move. And tell me about that session. Do you remember any about that detail?
Of course, yeah. The rehearsals for that album took place in Peter Asher's living room, where there was just a grand piano, and Carol was playing piano, Danny Korchmar playing acoustic guitar for the rehearsals. We didn't have any PA or anything, and James playing acoustic guitar and singing. And I had my drum set up, pretty pared down kit, but it was my drum kit. And so for the rehearsals, I couldn't play sticks on anything. So I just played brushes like I would play sticks, so, for the songs. And we didn't rehearse them that much. It was just to, I guess, find the right keys and for everybody to be familiar with the songs. And when we went into the studio, the songs that I knew that I wanted to play sticks on, I played sticks on them. But when it came to do Fire and Rain, I mentioned to Peter, I said, I think I'll just play this the way I did it in rehearsal with the brushes, because that was kind of working. Or do you want me to play sticks? And he said, no, play it the way you did in rehearsal. So I did, and we had a great engineer named Bill Lazarus at Sunset Sound, is where we recorded that album. And he had mic'd my drums so great. He used, I don't know if you remember these, Sony made these mics that were just so great for tom-toms. They looked like a pill. And they were just these beautiful, really, really warm microphones. And he had those on all my toms. And
Nice.
And the toms had no bottom heads on them that time. That was the flavor of the month, to take your bottom head off.
Nice.
So, I just played it with wire brushes and just hit the toms with a little bit of a rim shot. I think it has something to do with the throw of the metal brush, the way that it would just slightly be delayed into the hit,
Oh yeah. Okay.
You would hear it. You would hear the rim of the brush kind of hit the rim, the handle of the brush hit the rim, and then the brush would happen, the impact would happen just like milliseconds afterwards. So, I mean, that's my best guess anyway. But it was an amazing session, and that's how that came about. And I had no idea that, that song was gonna do what it was. And I don't know why I chose to play those fills over the bar lines, But there was all this space in the song where James would just hang on these chords.
Yeah.
And it felt like there was room to do something there. And I didn't consciously think about it. It just happened.
I went to see James in Vegas last summer with Steve Gadd, and to watch him play your drum tracks is really special too. That's a cool treat, man. What a show. And that song comes on and the audience, everyone's up on their feet. It's just an amazing song. And to be a part of that's got to feel really special.
Yeah, it's really true. Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the other artists you played with. I mean, the list is, forget about it. It goes on and on. Neil Diamond. How about that? Neil Diamond, Carly Simon, Joe Walsh. So actually, the first time I met you was in Vegas, 4th of July. I went out there to go see my friend Scott Crago play, and you were double drumming with him, Joe Walsh. And Scott said, let's go. I want to go and introduce you to Joe. And I'm like, no, I want to go meet Russ. Come on, let's go see Russ. And I had such a great night that night. It was so long ago.
Well, I have to say, another great drummer to play with for doing double drums is Scotty. He's a dear friend, and he's such a fine musician, and he's, one of the pillars of the Eagles for years, being able to take over the drum spot when Don wasn't playing drums. So, Joe Walsh is just amazing. I mean, Joe Walsh is one of those, I'll try to be brief with all these people. Joe Walsh is one of these people that really understands the guitar.
Oh yeah.
He's a master of that instrument. And I'll never forget playing on Dan Fogelberg's Souvenirs album, not Souvenirs, which album was it that Joe produced? He produced his first, it's not his first record, but one of Dan's early records. Joe Walsh produced. And I remember Joe's studio, Dan was out in the playing room doing a solo overdub. And he did a couple takes, and he came back in, and they listen to it, and Joe proceeds to tell him, man, you got to take your time. You got to give every note a cameo, you know.
That's funny.
And Dan really listened, and from then on, he really incorporated that into his solo playing, where he took his time and he built the solos up, as opposed to just kind of, you know, playing things, you know, that are unconnected and as fast as he could. He really started to become a really lyrical soloist.
Oh, yeah.
And Joe has that ability. Not only is he a great player, he's a great teacher. You know, he's one of the funniest human beings on the planet Earth, with one of the driest senses of humor ever.
Oh, yeah.
And he's just an amazing songwriter, an amazing singer, and just all around greatness out of him. And so is Dan Fogelberg. Working with Dan, who never really ever gets enough credit for all the wonderful songs that he wrote.
Oh, yeah.
And a huge fan base that he had.
Sure.
But it was great to be able to work with both of them, you know.
How about Seals and Croft, Neil Sedaka? I mean, the list goes on and on.
Well, here again, I only got to play on a few things of Seals and Crofts.
Yeah.
And they were just, what great harmonies that they were able to come up with. They had such a unique sound. And really, here again, really, really good people. And I really enjoyed playing with them. You know, I didn't get to play that much in the studio with them. I think I played on a couple of different albums, a few cuts here and there. But they kind of used, you know, a lot of different musicians on their records. So, you know, I didn't get to spend as much time with them as I did with some of the other artists I worked with. But great, iconic players. And I think the reason that I got to work with them is because at the time, the great guitar player Louis Shelton was producing their records. So I work on those with him.
So you find that's where a lot of your work came in that period. It's just word of mouth, or the producers would recommend you for other artists.
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I don't think we'll ever see those days again. I mean, in the 70s and 80s, I would say like the mid 70s to the mid 80s, there was you know, Jim Keltner, Jeff Beccaro, myself, a handful of other great drummers. We were all working. I mean, Hal Blaine was still working at that time, and you know, everyone else. And I would do a 10 and a 2 and maybe a 7. You know, I would do maybe 3 sessions a day, and then maybe a double session at night. The nighttime sessions were either like with James Taylor or Linda Ronstadt or Jackson Browne, but I would do other sessions during the day. I had to have 3 drum kits. Man. So that they could be at different places. But it wasn't just me; it was all the other drummers that were working that much too. But that just doesn't happen anymore. No. And I don't know if we'll ever see a time where that'll ever happen again.
That was a magical period.
Yeah.
For song creation, for recording, Southern California pumped out so many great hits in that era.
And prior to that, that was when the Wrecking Crew was doing the same thing. The difference between, say, the Immediate Family and the Toto and the other musicians that were working that much at that time, we all went on the road, where the Wrecking Crew didn't go on the road.
Yeah, they stayed.
They just worked in the studio. They stayed in town, but right. we did records, and then we went on the road with the artists. So that was the difference. We were kind of, you know, able to have both experiences.
Do you prefer the road or the studio?
Well, I like them both, but as musicians, we got much more exposure.
Out on the road.
Out on the road, for sure, because people would remember us, you know, being part of the Jackson Browne band, or being part of the James Taylor band, or the Linda Ronstadt band, or the Carole King band.
Tell me about Hal Blaine. I know you used to run into him in the studios, and I read somewhere they would put your ear up against a studio door just to listen to Hal Blaine play.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Just love listening to him play. And a lot of times his drum kit would be in the hallway, you know, getting ready to be loaded into a studio.
Oh, the big Octa kit.
Well, he had lots of different kits, but yeah, that one in particular, the one that had the little hats on the heads. Yeah, he had like cloth muffles over all the tom-toms. And because, you know, that was a sound at one point, you know, people wanted really flat tom-tom sounds. Mm-hmm. But I would just go up and look at him and touch him and go, oh man. And then later in life, I got to, you know, actually spend a little time with Hal
I agree.
and really realize what a wonderful human being he was.
He was special. I did the same. Later in life, just before he passed, I ended up spending a lot of time with him, actually out at his house with a film crew, and man, just really special. The stories I got out of him.
I got to spend 2 days at a rock and roll fantasy camp in Vegas. Waddy and Danny and Leland and I were out there doing the camp, and I had done my clinic, and then they had, and also it was sponsored by Modern Drummer at that point. And so there was a roundtable conversation with Hal and Jimmy Lee and JR and me and Joe Vitale and about 4 or 5 other drummers, and I'm kind of sitting 2 seats away from Hal, and he starts talking about, playing music and, all this kind of stuff. And I'm just kind of glued to him. I'm just kind of listening, hanging on every word. And little did I know it was a joke. It was like he totally sucked everybody in, because he was just like, he was giving this heartfelt, rendition about what it means to play music and all this stuff. And then it was a punchline, and we all fell out. But that's, Hal had the ability to do that.
He's the king of punchlines, that's for sure.
On the kid and off, exactly.
Yeah. So Lee Sklar, one of my buddies. I've known Lee a long time, as long as you, and you guys playing together. There's something magical about that. Let me hear your take on it. I have Lee's take on it. I want to know your take on that partnership of you and Lee Sklar.
Well, it stems from the fact that we've spent so much time playing together. I mean, it's coming up on, 40 years now. So when you've played music that much with somebody, you kind of know what they're going to do. It's unconscious, and like I'll start a fill and he'll finish it with me. It's like it's almost like we play each other. There's no time lag in it. It's like I'll know that he's going to be there, and so I'll be there with him, and he'll know when I'm going to start something, so he'll leave a hole and then he'll come in, and it's just, we don't even think about it anymore.
You're like an old married couple finishing each other's sentences.
I kind of like to look at it like a pair of comfortable shoes.
Yeah, I bet. Well, watching you two on stage play together, it's almost as if you two are in your own little world playing, and you're just letting everyone join you. You guys are in your own little groove, and everyone just adds on top, which is kind of special to see.
Well, I always tell people, I say, if you really want to know how important a bass player and a drummer are, put up a mix and then take out the bass and drums and listen to the rest of it by itself.
Oh yeah, definitely. The Rolling Stones had that touring exhibitionism. They had a mock studio there, and they had it where you could put on some headphones and pull tracks out. So I did that. I pulled everything out but Bill Wyman and Charlie Watts, and just listened to those two, and it was amazing. It was really cool.
Yeah, I bet.
So yeah, just listening to a song with bass and drums or without bass and drums, it's a big, huge difference.
Yeah, well, then you realize how important it is. So, there has to be a foundation for all this melodic stuff to happen over. So.
Yeah, and you guys play so melodic together, so it just adds way more color than just laying down a steady groove, but all the color that you two add together.
Yeah, well, there's
sauce. It's that little magic sauce in there.
Well, I think it's a combination of the fact that Leland really is a lyrical bass player.
Mm-hmm.
He plays. There's melodies within his parts. He loves to play lyrically. and I kind of love to leave space, you know, like I'll play a fill if I have to, you know, if it absolutely needs one, then I'll play one. But I tend to just like, you know, be the meat and potatoes of something and just keep something moving and have dynamics though. The dynamics are way more important to me than the fills.
Oh yeah, good.
So I, you know, I love for things to come down and things to come up, and if I err anywhere, I'm erring on the side of being sparse. So, you know,
That's good. So all the young drummers that are watching this right now, what kind of advice would you give them going into the studio? That's actually a good piece of advice. Sparse, lay it down, open space.
well, just find out what's really ask yourself the question, find out what's really needed and wanted from the drums. Like if you're working with somebody that really wants you to cut loose and really wants the drums to kind of like, you know, be the herd of horses driving it down the road, then yeah, by all means do that, you know. But if it's, you know, try to find out what the track is really requiring and listen to what the lyrics are saying and try to enhance that, be part of it as opposed to fight with it. You know, that's the best advice. And the best advice I can give is just listen, you know, let's try to figure out what the track can really use and at the same time, what it shouldn't have from the drums, you know, what it doesn't need from the drums. You know?
Almost as important as what you do play is what you don't play.
Exactly. I remember doing some tracks with Joe Walsh where he said to me, "Don't play any cymbals." And I went, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, I hate cymbals. Don't play them." So I was like, "Can I play the hi-hat?" He goes, "Yeah, but keep it closed." You know, like,
you can play, but I don't want to hear it. Yeah.
Right. But, you know, I mean, so, you know, it's really all about the artist and what they want. You know, it's not your song, it's not your session. But recording on a song isn't a vehicle for your stardom. You're there to help somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great point.
Yeah.
Okay, Russ, let's see some of the gear that you're going to be signing for the auction.
No problem. We have some very special DW, proprietary DW drum heads.
Excellent.
With the numbers, with the tuning sequence on them.
That's
These are 14-inch snare drum heads, coated, made by Remo, in case you want to know.
And signed by Russ Kunkel.
And signed by little old me. And I'm just going to sign all of them right here. It's number 1.
Beautiful.
Number 2.
Remember, folks, you can bid on these items and they can be yours. What a great addition to your drum collection or your memorabilia collection at home. I know I want one. Man, I have so many signed drum heads. I have one from you, Russ, here too. So it's a nice addition to the collection.
Well, they're going for $100,000 each for the Guitar Center Foundation.
And I got mine
Just
from
kidding.
you for free. Maybe I need to put it on eBay if I knew that.
And one more. So like I said, there's 5 of these. See,
All right, so you have a good chance of getting these, folks. If you want to start bidding on them, we got 5. Get one for a good price and add to your...
You could buy the whole lot.
Buy all 5. That way you own 1 through 5 of 5. You can totally corner the market of the Russ Kunkel signed drum heads.
So, you know, just want to reiterate again how important the work that the Guitar Center Foundation does. And, you know, all the time that everybody is putting into doing these, it really means a lot. And the Guitar Center Foundation gives back so much to the community. So please, anything that you guys can afford to donate or bid on, it's a really important cause.
Well said, Russ. Yep.
So coming up next, we have something very special here. This is right out of the box, brand new, maybe only one fingerprint on it, which is mine, which I'll wipe off. This is a brand new nickel over brass, 6.5-inch DW snare drum.
Look at that beauty. I love
it. For anybody that doesn't know about these snare drums, like this replaces the Black Beauty, basically.
Nice.
This drum will do everything. This drum will crack, you know, like a bazooka. but if you detune it and tune it down nice and low, it gives you that huge, fat, just, Fleetwood Mac kind of sound,
Love it.
But it's, and it's got the classic throw off, and it's just an awesome drum. So
man, that's a beauty.
sign this. This is not as easy to hold and sign, I have to tell you.
Here you go, folks. A super awesome snare drum for your collection, signed by Russ Kunkel. Look at that beauty. 6.5 by 14, correct?
Correct.
Nickel over brass, DW. Oh my God. Design series, correct?
Design series, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what we have here is a couple things that are really special to me. These are prints of photographs taken by, you may know this guy, his name's Rob Shanahan.
I've heard of him.
And I have had the good fortune to have him photograph me multiple times and for different ads. This is a photograph that Rob did for a Peisty ad.
Oh yeah. Shout out to Rich Manjicaro on this one. Our good buddy Rich Manjicaro, art directed, and such a great guy, great pal. I remember this shoot quite well.
And I like it because I actually look sophisticated in this shot,
Cool.
Slightly look like I know what I'm doing.
That's a cool photo. I still love it. Still holds up. It was in my first book, volume 1, and to this day, it still looks awesome. I love it. Very high tech.
What I'm going to do, are you going to sign these two, Rob?
Yeah, you're going to sign. I'm going to
sign on the left on the bottom, and then you sign on the right, okay?
I get the right.
And
you'll sign, ship them back to me. I'll frame them up nice. So folks, you can bid on these, have these in your collection. How beautiful. One of those hanging next to your snare drum or your signed drum head.
Exactly. So this picture that Rob took is really, really near and dear to my heart, because this was my first photo shoot for DW. And this was a point in my life that's very important to me. Of getting to have the honor to play this equipment. And we had fun that day. We did it up at the Drum Channel up in Oxnard.
Oh yeah.
And my kit wasn't finished yet. The contemporary classic kit wasn't finished. So they rushed to finish one snare drum. And so we had that to shoot, which kind of made the shoot kind of unique, because most of the time you're shooting a whole kit, right?
Yeah,
so this is kind of a throwback to the old, I don't know if you remember the old, some of the old Gretsch ads, where they broken down parts of a drum kit and just holding one thing, not necessarily sitting behind a kit. But this is the picture.
Love it. Look at that.
I'm just holding the snare drum. And as you can see, that's a happy face right there. Happy to be playing DW and very happy to be holding that snare drum. So
great. So remember, folks, bidding on the items, the proceeds go directly to the Guitar Center Music Foundation, Relief for Musicians. We can't thank you enough for joining us and being a part of it and doing what you can. Russ, always a pleasure to see you. You're one of my faves. And, we always have a good chat when we see each other, and I feel like there's a real bro-ship going on here. So I've been honored to work with you throughout the years and get to know you as a friend. And anything else you want to add right now? It's all
Rob, I feel exactly the same way. I couldn't have said it any better. I hope that everyone out there is staying safe. I pray every day that we get through this and we get beyond this to some semblance of normal, whatever the new normal is going to be, and when we can get together and see each other again. And I'm looking forward to that day.
Yeah, and don't forget, folks, coming soon, hopefully, to a city near you, Immediate Family with this all-star lineup. Man, such a great band. And I look forward to seeing you guys play live very soon, Russ. I hope we can all get back to it, doing what we do best, making music, photographing music, enjoying music. Come on, the world needs us more than ever.
It's
so
true.
Any of your donations and auction bids is going to a great cause. Thanks for joining us again. Russ Kunkel, thanks a lot. And I'll see you all real soon on the next episode of Relief for Musicians. Oh, thanks, Russ.
To be
Okay, music lovers, now's your chance to give back to the music community. We need you to donate and bid on the auction items. 100% of the proceeds go to the Guitar Center Music Foundation's Relief for Musicians. 75% directly to musicians in need. 25% will go to support music programs impacted by the coronavirus pandemic.
Certainly, we are at a time in our Earth's history that is uncharted. Many are in social isolation, physically distancing and locked down. We've spent months in our homes, separated, unable to do the things we are accustomed to doing. But music can't be stopped. This online concert series keeps the music playing. It will be exciting to see performances by some of the greatest musicians of our time, bringing their best to the stage, virtually. And what a great cause, music. We are thrilled to be a part and have you be a part of this. Thank you so much, and stay experienced.